You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, The Goodman Factor, McCaffrey Clinical Mentoring, Chiro Thin, Unmarket Your Practice, and Free My Pain Now with Dr. Matt Doduro. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to the Chiro Hustle Podcast. I am your co-host Luke. Here's your host Jim with episode 137.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing our good friend Dr. Richard Ledda. And if you want to understand why he's so inspired about Chiro, stay tuned. So this is episode 137 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. Really excited for this one. This is our good friend Dr. Richard Ledda. And we are going to light some fires today with this guy. He is on fire. So I have Luke now, and we are not in the same location. So this is going to be a really cool, first time for us. So Richard, you're coming in from Canada, correct?
Yes, I am, sir.
And Luke is now in Grand Junction, and I'm in the Mile High City. So we're just mixing it up a little bit just because of travel requirements for all of us. So Richard, let's just jump right into this one and tell us your chiropractic story and what inspired you to become a chiropractor.
So Jim, actually I want to thank you first for letting me come on and, speak to you guys, just have a casual conversation. I know you and I are, and Luke, our friendship and relationships have been grown ever since we've met. So thank you for what you're doing. But going back to the question, I was inspired to become a chiropractor when my health was transformed through chiropractic. And so what I mean by that was, when I was 10 years old, growing up, I was not a healthy kid. Grew up overweight, almost technically obese for my age group. Suffered from things like metabolic syndrome, migraines, headaches, neck pain, low back pain. I had chronic asthma where I had to take 2 inhalers every single day. And then I had these emergency blue puffers that I had to take as well. Growing up, I wasn't a good looking kid. So, naturally I was being made fun of at school, and eventually over time, they put me on depression medications, which was Prozac specifically to help deal with some of the depression that I was going through growing up. So my dad, by the age of when I was 15 and he was 56, I used to work at Wendy's, and I think for you guys, you might know what Wendy's is, I think.
Oh, I love Wendy's.
Love Wendy's. Me too. So I used to work there every Saturday, Sunday morning. And if you can imagine the smell, the burgers being made and the potatoes being made, roasted. Every Saturday and Sunday morning, my dad would drop me off at 7 a.m. And that was my weekend job when I was 15 years old. And after he dropped off my mom, he went to drop me off, and, I started the shift as normal, prepping all the food, prepping all the chili, prepping all the burgers. And during my break, my manager actually comes up to me and says, "Hey, Rich, your brother's on the phone for you." And I say, that's really weird because, me and my brother are 11 years apart, and we never really spoke or were even that close. And he was kind of that older, mean brother for some of those that, if you guys have that. But I answered the phone, and then eventually it got to the point where he was saying that, "Rich, get ready because Dad just had a heart attack." And so my aunt picked me up from work. We went straight to the hospital here, which was Health Sciences Center. My sister's a nurse, so she was already there. And by the time my mom, me, and my aunt got to the hospital, we looked in the waiting room, and we were like, okay, where's everybody? One of my sister's colleagues knew who we were, so she took us, led us to the family room, the private family room, and eventually what happened was the screaming that was so faint in the background got louder and louder and louder. And as she opened the door, it was my sister screaming that he's gone. And so that was my calling to take care of myself a little bit more. And when I was in high school, I used to run around my high school track. I did 2 miles every single day. My diet was, broccoli, carrots, celery, boiled chicken. It was super nasty. It was super dry. And by the time I was 18 years old, I got into a car accident. And by the time I was 18, physically I looked better, but internally I was in a lot more pain. Had more headaches, more migraines, more severe. Asthma got worse. They put me on more medication. And I just saw my health deteriorate internally. And so my friend referred me to a chiropractor after I got into a car accident. And he performed, his protocol. He went through a doctor's report with me. And that was where I was turned on to this idea of that your body was able to heal itself. And by the time I was in university, I was actually deciding to do medicine because I thought medicine saved lives, which it does in the time be. But at that time, he taught me that there's different ways to save lives. And that was to do it by prevention and promoting health instead of waiting until someone got sick and suffered from something like that heart attack, like my dad did. So I went through this route. I went through chiropractic care. I saw all my, a lot of my ailments, like my headaches, my neck pain go away. And then just adopting this lifestyle helped me a lot in the sense of, seeing more results in myself. So I was able to get off my inhalers. I no longer take depression medications. And, I've been medication free for quite some time, 10, 11 years. It's been such a phenomenal journey for me. So that's why I'm here as a chiropractor.
And how many years have you been practicing now?
This is my 4th year.
So in your 4 years of your career so far, what would you say makes you unique, or what makes you stand out in the chiropractic world?
I think for everybody, it's just going to be that, I'm me. I'm Richard Ledda. And specifically, Jim Chester's Jim Chester, and you're Luke Millett. There's going to be similarities across the whole board. We're going to have similar philosophies. We're going to have similar techniques. Ultimately, you bring your own unique voice to the table. And really, I guess we'll segue into this, but that was my calling into the podcasting world, where I was like, I'm myself, and if I can just bring the best version of myself to the world, then I'll transform someone's life.
Really quickly, let's give you a plug. What's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, my podcast is the Chiro Inspired Podcast. I think I'm on episode 24 now.
Nice.
So it's been a journey. It's been a lot of work, but totally worth it. Totally worth it.
And one of the things I said to you right away, Dr. Ledda, was let's not look at episode 10. Let's look at episode 100 and see where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead, Luke.
Do you have any favorite mantras or motivational quotes, words of wisdom that keep you fired up every day?
There's I think, reflecting back on what you just asked me, like what makes me unique. Man, I don't know. It was at a seminar, and I think it was a speaker. I forgot his name, but he was saying that he was going through the story of Moses and how Moses up at the mountain, and he was speaking to God, and he was asking God, he's like, "Hey God, what do I tell the people when they ask who you are?" And then he goes, God says, "I am who I am." So you just reflect back on that. You're just like, I'm like, holy smokes, that's so true. I am who I am. And, God is with you. God is in you. He speaks through you. You're a vessel for him. But essentially, like, it's just a reflection of you and who you are. And you are who you are. I am who I am. So that one really speaks to me. But one that I always look at when I'm in my adjusting rooms is one by, I think his name is Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I actually have the quote. I don't have his name here, but the quote goes, what is success? So success is to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate the beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, this is to have succeeded. That's what I try to live by. Thank you.
I love that.
Yeah, over here in the Mile High City, it almost brings a tear to my eye because I've seen that in you since I met you the first time, Richard. And you came and saw me speak up in Toronto at the mastermind group with the Inner Circle. And it was pretty impressive because I knew that you were up to something dynamic. And I knew that you were looking in all the places to find the identity. And I knew that you were doing the work. That's something I think, if I could throw a shout out to you as what makes you unique, is you drive hard, man. You figure things out. You innovate, you connect, you bring the tribe together stronger. You're uniquely you. And I think that that's one of the most beautiful things out of anybody I've ever interviewed, or Luke and I have interviewed, is the idea that you are authentically you. And now you've created a platform to share other people and to put a spotlight on them. Because as I realize what I've done over the past, several years, is it's not about me. Mm-hmm. It's about you. And that's why you're on the Chiro Hustle platform today, because it is about you. It's your story. And the next question I have for you is, it's a chiropractic question, is what would we be able to accomplish if more people just simply knew about chiropractic? And I know that's why you're doing your show as well, but what would we be able to accomplish as a profession if more people just simply knew that it wasn't about, the pharmacology of health, but it's about letting the body heal from inside out naturally the way it's supposed to, as you found out going through your developmental years into your collegiate degree?
Yeah, great question. And I think all of you would know that I think this North America, United States, Canada, we'd be thriving as people. You'd see, of course, less sick people, people depending less on drugs, and just seeing people thrive. And when I say thrive, it's like living their best life and living the life that they want, their version of success. It's really, I can't give you any statistics. I'm not really that type of person, but essentially you would just say that, hey, my community is operating better. Their people are happier. People are functioning better. They're outside. They're healthy. And really, I have nothing really against pharmacology or medicine, because they have saved lives. I've had similar friends that have had their dads have heart attacks, and they've had their lives saved. And luckily the medical system was there to try to help my dad, but eventually it was too late. I have mad respect for what they do and for a lot of my friends that are medical doctors. But at the same time, I think a lot of what's going on is actually more money driven. And it doesn't actually want to see people very healthy. And I'm going beyond to the bigger, I guess, the ivory tower or big pharma. Again, they do a lot of the research and they develop a lot of the drugs for us. But at the same time, it's not really getting people well or getting them healthy. It's just maintaining them. And yes, they're saving them from reaching an early death. But at the same time, it's not allowing them to thrive and be who they're meant to be. It might be just giving them that little bit of little extra for a little bit of help to get them through the day or get them through the next year, but it's not letting them thrive within their life. And so if more people knew about chiropractic care, again, you would just see, not only a healthier population, but I think you'd see a better economy. You'd see the economy in less, or the nations in less debt. I know that America is in trillions of dollars of debt. It's not like that in here in Canada, because I think for the most part, Canadians take care of themselves a little bit better. We don't have as many supersized fries or drinks over here. So it's a little bit more in moderation, but we're following the trends of America. And if we keep going that way, it's not going to end up well.
Well, another thing about Canada is if you go to the airport, it's just like a 15-mile hallway. Yeah. So people are always getting exercise whether they want to or not. So where do you see the profession heading in the next 20 years?
You know what? If you kind of just look at history, it's almost like, at least in my point of view, history will repeat itself. We're going through it again. Like, when we had the Wilkes case, how many years ago was it, like a few decades ago, where there was this conspiracy or not conspiracy, but more so this attack on chiropractic to get rid of it as a profession. And we're seeing that again right now through the social media. We're seeing the burning of books, the banning of certain posts, and you can't talk about certain things. In Canada, you can't talk about certain things, and I won't get into it here just for out of respect for the nation. But you're seeing those things in Australia, here, the UK. But we're being very limited in terms of how we can talk and what we can talk to our patients about. Whether or not you went through the schooling in university or even through a seminar, you're still limited to the things that that are deemed in your scope. In Canada, it's more so like low back pain, neck pain, musculoskeletal pain versus a neuromusculoskeletal model.
Well, as you said some things there, Richard, I just wanted to shine a big spotlight on some of the things, because I know in Canada you have to have a really strong regard for your licensing. And I know that if you do or say the wrong things, it can have a negative impact on your ability to be a practitioner.
Right.
And I think that that's probably the one thing, the elephant in the room, if you will, that's actually hurting the profession, is the inability for a chiropractor to speak freely about what they do and to promote their services freely the way that they see fit, and to be safeguarded to the public on something that actually makes people well. I think that that's the elephant in the room when it comes to all these nations that you're speaking about.
Yeah.
And when people think it's just in Canada, wait till it comes here. Wait till it comes to Denver, Colorado. What's going to happen to the chiropractors then? Are they going to be supporting one another more? Or are they going to still say, hey, I'm against the guy down the street? And I think that that's really the conversation that needs to happen sooner than later. And it's kind of like this kumbaya, like, hey, let's make unity in chiropractic. But if we don't, and if we don't build some type of a stronger unity instead of a stronger division, then the Canadians will fall, the Americans will fall, and then it doesn't matter how many supersized meals that we get. And, even this past weekend, when I was up there driving around with an American chiropractor in Canada, we looked at each other over our shoulders, and I saw this big supermarket, and it was like a mall.
Yeah.
But the biggest part of the mall was a drugstore. And his eyes went like this. And he looked at me and he pointed to me because we couldn't talk. And and he looked at me like this, and he's like, look, man. And I'm just like, yeah, thinking to myself, and I'm like, they have a stronghold on every corner, on every structure, on every mall. And why wouldn't they want to shut down the natural healers of the world and make them become the villains and become somebody that is subjected to being books burned mentality and being shut down systematically and being, turn the corner against rather than turn the corner for. Yeah. And I think when we think about what's happening in Canada, you guys should just keep adjusting, kids. You guys should just.
We will. And we're fighting for it. Let me get back to I want to make my point. I talked about how, history repeats itself in the sense of what's going on right now. But again, the truth is the truth. And you can't refute the law of what we do and how it helps people. So I believe that chiropractic is still going to survive. It's still going to thrive. Now, what the percentage is, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be like. And if anything, I think it's still going to stay within the 10 to 12%, at least within Manitoba, because people like it, people love it, and they're willing to try these different things. And we need to come up with different strategies and unite more as a profession if we're going to actually make a bigger impact. And so when I talk about uniting the profession, I'm not saying that every person needs to agree on the same exact thing or the same philosophy or the same technique. We can all thrive with whatever we believe in. But the point is that you're practicing chiropractic and at least honoring its principles. Now, I look at the way that I practice is I more so look at a structural model, and I also look at a tonal model. Both of them are actually very somewhat contradicting to each other, but I still, help people through those two different aspects of chiropractic. Now I have friends down the street that I'm really good friends with, and they're just maybe pain-based or pain-focused. Am I going to harp on them? No, because they're my brother or my sister, and they're still helping people. And what I mean by uniting chiropractic is that we come together on the same mission just to help people. And again, I had this conversation with actually Dr. Don McDonald, and he was saying that, we actually need diversity because that diversity actually makes us stronger. Jim, you have a heart, a pretty big heart, you have lungs, you have a brain, you have eyes. All those cells are differentiated to work very uniquely. But then at the end of the day, all of them come together to form you, Jim, the person. And so all of those little cells working together, us as chiropractors working together, can make a great profession. And in your case, a great person.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And as you say those things, it goes back to the founders of the profession. Dede didn't want to divulge what chiropractic was because he thought eventually people would come in and manipulate it and to change it for their own reckoning. And I think as we know that the history does repeat itself, we are at that juncture again where people are coming in and they want to take the philosophy and make it their own and to put it into the other medical model. And mm-hmm. I think that the wellness whole idea, even when Luke and I made our first movie a few years back on chiropractic, it was Miles Boston that was saying this whole idea, the word of wellness, this wellness model. Like you can go into any pharmacy right now and they talk about wellness.
Yeah.
But is that really wellness? No. The chiropractic philosophy of the eating, the thinking, the moving, the getting adjusted, that's wellness. Mm-hmm. Wellness is that chiropractic model that teaches people to be self-sufficient with their health and to look to somebody that is least invasive first. And as I've learned working in this profession for years now, that it's not always about us. It's never about us. It's about what gets us better and what keeps us healthy. And when we are us, there should be two doctors in your life as in accord to your father, one to save somebody from dying, but there should be that other doctor paradigm too, is which one keeps them healthy. And I think that most people just don't know the right roads to go on because they're so damn confused.
Yeah.
They are so confused and browbeat with watching sports on TV or their night shows or their daily shows or whatever they're into, even probably on Netflix and like Hulu these days, they put on probably pharmaceutical commercials because people are just inundated with the messaging and then they become confused and like, why would I go to you guys?
It's a very different, I guess, environment in the sense that, what we're exposed to. And, we have now TV, you have social media, you have, different web browsers, and you're getting bombarded with all these thoughts, and people can't make up their own minds. And so we get so influenced by what we see next on the television screen or the next article. And so like when I'm looking at Facebook, I'm like, man, I'm taking it with a grain of salt. And I'm like, okay, well, it is what it is, but I'm going to seek the truth beyond what I'm seeing right there in the media. And I think that's important for everybody to do. And really, as long as, people are, as chiropractors are helping people in a more natural way and being very ethical about it, chiropractic will still survive and it will thrive as long as we keep doing good work.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, The Goodman Factor, McCaffrey Clinical Mentoring, Chiro Thin, Unmarket Your Practice, and Free My Pain Now with Dr. Matt Doduro. Let's hustle.
So I'm going to pull a surprise question on you that we keep in the arsenal sometimes. What do you think is the most significant thing to happen to chiropractic in the past decade?
Oh, good question. Most significant thing?
Most important, most impactful. A lot of people say social media.
Yeah, I was going to say something along those lines. I would say probably something very similar, at least podcasting in my sense, right? Like we have all these platforms to get our word out there. And if you think of, if BJ had access to all this stuff, guess what he would be doing?
He'd be going nuts.
He'd be going
all day.
Nuts. He'd be on Twitter. He'd be on Instagram. He'd be on TikTok. He'd be podcasting. He would be, I mean, I can't speak for BJ specifically, but he would be probably using these resources at his fingertips because yes, there's some negativity to them, but at the same time, there is some positive things that we can get out of it. And it's just another way to get our message out there. So yes, I would say at least the online space is very crucial to us thriving.
Yeah, he would definitely be on Chiro Hustle.
Yeah.
Well, to lead up on top of that, Luke and Richard, is when we think about the access to technology, we all have it. It's about how you formulate it. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have to market it and brand it the right way and be damn consistent. And I think that that's one of the things that most people fall short on. Like when you interviewed me, Richard, I was like, it's not for us to get permission anymore. Like we don't need anyone's permission. Like we have access to it all. We just have to have a formula, a system to keep like making sure that we don't go silent. Mm-hmm. And that's why Hustle has done so well, is because we refuse to go silent. And that's probably the biggest thing, because BJ's on my shirt here, and he would have been the guy to say, just create a whole team of people that brand chiropractic properly and to disseminate information out there and to do it while it's still available at such an easy strategy. Because eventually, they could come in and remove all podcasts on chiropractic. Mm-hmm. They could eventually stymie the way that we have conversations about what we love. So we have to be consistent and blitz right now while there's an open source for it. And I think that that's what makes you unique, really, Richard, is the Inspired Chiro Podcast, is blitzing the media and showing people that everybody should be more consistent with the messaging. It's not just for Richard Ledda. It's not just for Luke Millett. It's not just for Jim Chester. It's for everybody. And everybody has to develop and cultivate a voice. I see one of our brothers is on here, Peter Avalon North Star, and he's going more consistent. And it scares him to death because he doesn't know basically how to formulate his messaging, because it's not easy. So we have to just become more consistent and become the curators of a message, because right now the podcast space is so available. It's so wide open. People are definitely paying attention to it, and voice and audio recordings, they're only going to get more popular.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And, it's definitely given me a voice for sure within the space a little bit more. And, I've always been someone that's wanted to help people, in chiropractic school, not to try to toot my own horn, but a lot of students would come up to me to seek guidance or, see what I'm doing. And I'm like, man, I'm just really doing what my mentors told me to do. So if you want to copy me, here's what I'm doing, but find your own journey. Because this is going to be your own unique way to help people. And however you come about that's up to you, but at least be consistent and do as much as you can to learn while you're here.
So I know podcasting is probably one of your biggest advertising outlets, but what other kind of marketing strategies do you use to market yourself or your clinic or even advertising your podcasts?
I use a lot of Instagram and social media for the podcasts. Instagram and Facebook, that's my main two that I'm really good with and I can use. It's all been organic. I don't really pay for ads or anything like that right now. I've chosen not to until and here's full disclosure, there's no monetary gain from the Chiro Inspired Podcast right now. There's no sponsors right now. Eventually I will. I will have, but they have to be in alignment with what I'm doing. And I'm not in a rush to get any sponsors because I want to make sure that, hey, I'm producing actual good content and someone who wants to approach me to be a sponsor. And it has to be a company that I really align with. So for example, if CLA, shout out to them, if they want to sponsor me, I'd happily take it because I use their equipment. I utilize the surface EMG, the lung thermal, the HRV, and I teach my patients how to actually understand it. When it comes to the office, the initial way that I actually built up my patient volume was screening. And I did big ones like the big wedding show that we have here. I did the wellness show that we have here. And luckily I had a brother that was really in those events. And he had me come with him. And it was a blessing in, not disguise, but it was just a blessing for me to be there with him. And so I built my practice. If you want numbers, I was 100 visits in a month, which is great. Like in a week, sorry, after a month's work of work, if that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah.
So like I built it up and, eventually it just started coming more so internally where we were running our systems from like day 1 to day 2 to day 3, and just creating a great experience, getting people great results and them referring their friends and family. So those are the main ways that I've marketed.
Well, I want to jump in and just tell you that I'm really proud of you for going out there and doing the heavy lifting and doing the work and meeting people where they are and going out to your community and telling people you can help them. I think that chiropractors didn't go to school for marketing per se, but you have to go out there and find people that need you and you have to tell them you can help them. And based on your marketing strategies, going digitally is definitely one aspect of it, but you have to do the community outreach. Mm-hmm. If you're not doing the community outreach, you can have the greatest mind and heart and hands out there, but people aren't going to come in and just see you because you have an office down the street. Just because you have signage and you paid for a glowing light and that you have great Omni tables or whatever tables that you use and you have CLA in your office and you're doing all these advanced techniques, no one gives a rip if they don't know who you are and that you have a human connection with them. And that's just something to everybody out there. But have you seen that since you started doing your podcast that people have come in becoming patients because they've been attached to you from social media? Like
recently I've been getting at least, it's not huge numbers, but like three or four people just from like Instagram, for example, a week or every 2 weeks. Now those aren't big numbers, but what that's saying to me is that they're looking. So keep producing and keep actually being consistent, and just be authentically you on there, and engage with them. And more importantly, what like you touched on it was, getting out into the communities is going to be very important. My first year, I was out there shaking hands, networking with people, meeting with different people, and just getting my name out there. And that itself created a huge buzz. And I think it was the year after I actually won an award with something called the Manitoba Filipino Business Council, where they honored me for for what I was doing. And again, not to toot my own horn, but I was like, that meant a lot to me to see that was being recognized, and that like, hey, putting in this extra work to get out there, people see that and they want to come see the person that is willing to put out the energy to go meet them.
So do you have any favorite apps or technology or a social media platform to keep you connected to your patients?
It's just Instagram and Facebook, man. Yeah. The main two. Nothing super fancy or anything like that. I try to engage. I try to, do the comments, what is it, 10, 10, 10 or whatever it was. Like you pick 10 people, 10 hashtags and you do 10 comments, something like that. I don't know what it is.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. I think it's a Gary Vee thing where you go to, you search up different contacts, you do 10 different hashtags and you just message or, comment on each one.
So let's talk a little bit more about this idea of marketing and passively doing it and seeing the outcome starting to, grow for you. Because I know that everybody out there, they're like, well, why would I do a podcast? It's a lot of time. It's a lot of commitment. But over the long haul of it, you learn how to brand yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're omnipresent in your community with Instagram. You're omnipresent in your chiropractic space with your messaging. So what's going to happen is the effect of Dr. Richard Ledda is going to get speaking opportunities. Dr. Richard Ledda now is friends with 25 people that he didn't have a relationship with before he started the podcast. It's going to help you become what you just said you got an award for, but it's going to be an award within your colleagues. Mm-hmm. So when people think about like podcasting and, the output that it takes to create infographics, the output that it takes to create, a movement within your own community, think about the output that it takes to create a movement within the chiropractic world. And I think that that's probably the part that most people don't get or understand. But now, after hundreds and hundreds of interviews that Luke and I have done, now we have access to the whole profession. And I think that if people think about it, we never created Chiro Hustle to become some big thing. We created Chiro Hustle to give value back. And as we created more value, what did it do for us? It created more value for us. And now we have connections with the greatest minds of this beautiful profession. And I think that in the long run, it will be a vehicle to generate new patients for you, but it will also be a vehicle to generate new relationships for you. And anybody out there that's listening that thinks that podcasting consistently is something that might suck, well, think about what happens when 1 out of 2 chiropractors fails after 5 years of practice because they don't go out and build relationships and market in their communities and go out there and do the social networking inside their community and then get on the social media as well. It's not just show up and adjust anymore. It's you have to become a whole different version of yourself for segments of different audiences.
Absolutely. You hit a point, and it's really important, like just going back to it, just put in energy and you put in the time, you be consistent. And you know what, when you found the Chiro Hustle podcast, just to give back and give value, I found the Chiro Inspired Podcast actually a little bit more in a reactive state, where it was like, we were getting all this media attack from within Canada and Australia. And, I felt it in practice, and my volume felt it. Our whole team felt it, and all my colleagues within the same city felt it. And as we would talk to each other, we'd be like, man, like it really sucked. Like it sucked seeing all that stuff and just feeling that energy go down. And so the way that I came out of that was just really listening to podcasts like yours, like Dr. Ed's, like Johnny's, Dr. Melissa's, and really just getting inspired from other people. And, podcasting or podcasts were the main source of what I was consuming. And I didn't have time to watch too many videos. I can put this in the background and, listen on my way to the office or at the gym. And so I was like, you know what, I want to get back to this profession. And the way that I've really helped myself was listening to different podcasts. And so why don't I try to do something and highlight the journey of different chiropractors and show that, like, hey, there's actually a lot of inspiration within the stories of chiropractors. And we're not actually bad people. We're not witch doctors. We're not people that are against medicine all the time. We really want to help people live healthier, thriving lives. And that's the beauty of it. And that's really why I founded the Chiro Inspired Podcast. It was a little bit reactive at first, but became proactive in the sense like, hey, I want to continuously give back to the profession. And this is the best way that Dr. Richard Ledda could do that.
So let's talk about you and your personal life just a little bit. Are you in the middle of any good books? What do you like to listen to? What are some of your hobbies?
Good books. So right now I went back and I'm reading something called Made to Stick by Dan and Chip Heath, which is about a book about presenting or telling stories, kind of like what we and Roberto were talking about. One book I actually just was right beside me was this one here. You guys can see that. It's called This Is Marketing by Seth Godin. A lot of inspiration actually came from him. And, I think getting back to the theme of like, I am who I am and you being uniquely you, he just said like, Mozart went out there and just created his own art. So did Beethoven, and so did Leonardo da Vinci, and all these guys just went out there and produced and did their thing and created. Whether or not someone liked it, they didn't give probably at first they didn't give a rat's ass, pardon my language, but
no, that's fine.
They just did it, and eventually they found people. If people found them, and they just started loving them. And podcasting is the way that I produce my own art. Another book that I might read from time to time, or I do a lot more audiobooks, are a lot of self-reflective books. So one book was The 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. Super reflective for me. And I think the book essentially talks about a lot of the passages within the Bible and how it's more of a story of redemption, and that a lot of us can reach low peaks in our life. But out of that low peak, you can really hit redemption, and you can be redeemed as long as you turn yourself around and start doing the right things. Other things I do is like I listen to a lot of audios, again, like your podcasts. I interview a lot of people, and actually that's where I get a lot of inspiration from, is just interviewing other docs.
What else do you do for fun?
Well, I got a beautiful girlfriend, Lindsay. Hopefully she's watching this, or she'll watch this. She's my rock. She means so much to me. And we have a little puppy. So we have a little fur family, that we like to say. And, I really try to dedicate as much time as I can to them, or at least a specific time. So for example, when I'm home after the office, 7 p.m., it's just me and them, and it's me enjoying our time together. Other than that, it's like the weekends are dedicated to family and friends and seeing others, and that's how we get filled up. Obviously, within the day, you try to have an hour for yourself, where whether I'm praying or meditating or journaling, working out, I have some me time for myself. In terms of fun, this is fun, man. This whole journey is fun, and as long as I'm being fulfilled and satisfied, I'm happy. Once in a while, I might play some board games with family and friends, but I'd rather be enjoying one's company versus having to go out and, play a video game, for example.
What's that over your shoulder?
Where? Oh, guitar. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, we have a guitar and piano. So we do, it's not consistent though. And I was consistent for the first, 4 or 5 months, but then I started podcasting. So that was another way to produce art, but I still play it from time to time.
Yeah, I used to play electric guitar, and I forgot all of that stuff. It's all gone.
It's great though, man. It really balances out my brain for sure. When you can just pick it up and play.
So give us some social media links and websites. Where can people find you or listen to your podcast or find out what else you're doing in life?
Yeah, so you can reach me at, actually you can go to my website, which is www.drledda.com. You can find my email there. You can contact me there. You can find the latest episodes there. I'm on all major podcasting applications like iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever else there is. On Instagram, Twitter, you can message me or find me at Dr. Ledda. That's DRLEDDA. And just reach out to me those ways, and that's probably going to be best.
All right. Well, we're just about at the end of this episode. Jim, did you have anything you want to add?
Well, I just want to ask Dr. Ledda, is there anything that we didn't ask you that you'd like to share with our audience today?
You know what? At the end of the day, it's just be you. I don't want to say authentic, but I just want to say be you. And whatever version of yourself you need to be, go be that. Because we talk about, that we're good enough, and you are at your point, but if you want to reach higher levels, I think we have to understand that we can better ourselves and become more of value to people around us. And I think it's important to just say, hey, be you, but also be a better version of you every single day and keep working on that. The only person you need to compare yourself to is the person that you were yesterday. And as long as you're moving from that and bettering yourself from it, or on top of that, life's going to be good to you. And I believe at least God and the universe are going to reward you for just being you. So just be you.
That's beautiful.
Well, I want to close out by saying, Richard, we love and appreciate you, man. You're a gem in this profession. I'm so blessed to be able to get to know you on a higher level, and appreciate you for taking time to interview me for your podcast, the Inspired Chiro Podcast, and joining the Inner Circle group with all of us industry transformers. And I think it's just, it's a real pivotal moment for me to be able to see a young man rising up, and to see you be able to become who you are. And that's the greatest part about the relationship I have with you, is I've been watching you from the sidelines, but I've also been congratulating you in person. So it's really cool to build that relationship with you. And none of that would have been possible without podcasting. So I just want to show everybody that much dedication, that when you do step outside of your comfort zone and you do stay consistent, you earn the trust and friendships of people like Dr. Ledda.
Yes. Thank you, brother. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate Luke. Thank you very much. I don't think you get enough credit, man.
Thank you.
Do so much for this profession already. From meeting you and Jim in Toronto, it was such a great and such a blast to have you guys. Jim, thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you're doing for this profession. Just watching you inspires me every single day, and just seeing what you're doing. And if I can say, you've been such a blessing for this profession, and I'm going to say that from the bottom of my heart, and let everybody know that. And I tell everybody about you. So keep doing what you're doing. Luke, keep doing what you're doing. Thank you guys again for what you're doing for this profession.
Appreciate you, brother. I'm going to go ahead and close out by telling everybody, you're just one story away. Keep hustling.
Keep hustling.
We'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.